Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and it's a pleasure to follow the right honourable member for Chipping Barnet and indeed to be called to speak in the King's speech. It's probably worth putting in context that this is 13 years into a Tory government. 13 years into a Tory government, but with a new Prime Minister. And we know that we're going to be facing a general election at some point over the course of the next few months. But I would say, given those circumstances, where is the vision? Where is the vision? And where is the hope? Because it's sadly lacking from this King's speech today. And we should remember that each and every one of us that have been sent to this House, that individually and collectively we are here to show responsibility, to show leadership, and to do that at times of challenge, both at home and abroad. And I am glad that so many members today have made reference both to Ukraine and to the situation in the Middle East. Because we should remember every single day the responsibility that we have to our friends in Ukraine. And we should recognise the unity of purpose that we've had across this House. That those that are in that country of Ukraine, those that are fighting on the front line, those that have given so much to defend their freedom and democracy. And with everything else that's going on, we need to remain absolutely resolute to the people in that country and to recognise that for how long it takes, that we stand with President Zelensky, that we stand with the people of Ukraine. And that invasion, that illegal invasion, is something that has to be defeated. Putin can never win. Whether it's today, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's after that next election, that resolve to support Ukraine must remain. But of course, much of the attention, rightly, over the course of the last few weeks has been about the appalling events that unfolded in Israel on the 7th of October. And it is right that each and every one of us in this House should call out that act of terrorism, that attack on the people of Israel that took place, that slaughter of men, women and children. And yes, we call out Hamas as the terrorist organisation that it is. And yes, Hamas must be destroyed. They must be defeated. But we also need to recognise that sadly, what we've seen over the course of the last few weeks is not just the inhumane slaughter of the Israelis, but those that now live in Gaza that are casualties of a war that is not of their making. We must remember the responsibility that we have, yes, to support Israel, but yes, also to support those that desire peace on the Palestinian side. And we must recognise that for far too long, many of us right across this chamber have been calling for a two-state solution. To get to that prize where both Israel and Palestinians can live at peace together. Yes, we need to make sure that those that are held hostage by Hamas are returned to their families and to their loved ones. But we also must recognise that we can't have the innocent slaughter of innocent civilians, the children that have given their life. And all of us, across these islands, across the Western world, have a responsibility to make sure that the case for a humanitarian solution to protect innocent lives must be absolutely at the forefront of our minds. So the international situation is something that must be absolutely front and centre. But we have to think about the circumstances that all of our people face across these islands. The member for Halton, Price and Howden went through some of the major geopolitical events that have taken place over the course of the last 25, 30 years. But one of the events that's actually not been reflected on today, but has had a huge influence on us, has been the financial crisis of 2008. Because, rightly, we did have the quantitative easing programme that's been reflected on by many members today. But the biggest mistake that was made in the United Kingdom was a disconnect between monetary and fiscal policy. That in particular the poor have paid the price for the failures of the financial markets and the austerity that we've lived with in the period since then. And yes, we need to reflect on the fact that in the decade which has passed is the first decade in 200 years where people have become poorer in real terms, where real wages have declined. And when we think about the pressures that are there today on our public services, we talk about the debt that we have rightly and a desire to get that down. And actually, we've heard in the King's speech today about the desire for economic growth. Well, I welcome that, because of course we've got to deliver sustainable economic growth. But I say to colleagues on the government benches, where are the plans? Where are the concrete plans to drive investment into the economy, to drive up productivity, to drive up living standards, to make people wealthier and to deliver the tax receipts that allow us to invest in our public services? Because frankly, there is no detail. There is nothing of any substance. And this has to be seen in the context that on a relative basis in the world that the UK has been going backwards. And let's not forget that the UK is no longer a major manufacturing economy. It is a trading economy. And the fact that it is a trading economy and the damage that was done to us by Brexit and removal of our largest trading partner is something that we should reflect on. Now, I want to give the government some credit, perhaps unusually, and I can see some friends on the government benches smiling at me, because there are certain things that the government's good at. They're actually very good with sound bites. Long-term economic plan, Northern Powerhouse, levelling up, get Brexit done. You can go through those and others. Better together. Well, don't start me on that one. HS2, high-speed rail, I can hear mentioned as well. But, you know, to be serious for a second, yes, these are slogans that have been rolled out in election campaigns, and they have seduced people, perhaps, to vote for the Conservatives and put them into power. But as we would say in certain parts of Scotland, it's all fur coat and nae knickers. So the result is that we've had that 200 years that has come to an end with a fall in real living standards. There's that absence of confidence in the economy to drive investment, and that is before we get to the cost of living crisis. We need investment, and we need growth, and we need it for a purpose. We need to show to the people of this country that we can get through this economic crisis. And I make the point to the government, where is the plan? And I do want to make reference to some of the work that the SNP Westminster group has done over the course of the last year. We have published 2 papers, and I would commend them both to colleagues. One, the economic opportunity for Scotland from renewable energy and green technology, and a roadmap for a Scottish green industrial strategy. Because, Mr Deputy Speaker, what we have done is we have done the hard work in terms of where the opportunities for growth, for prosperity and jobs will come from. And, you know, we've heard a lot today about oil and gas, for example. But the government's going to be very careful about the signalling that is taking place, because whether they like it or not, we have got to get to net zero. Whether we're talking about the aspiration that we have in Scotland of 2045 or whether it's in Westminster in 2050. And we need to drive that investment in green energy to come to this country. And I'm interested that in response to the King's speech, that the IPPR has said this afternoon, by far and away the best way to improve energy security, cut bills and support workers through investing more into renewables, new oil and gas would cut fossil fuel imports by 2 to 4%. Alternatively, faster renewable rollout will cut them by 12 to 17% respectively. That, Mr Deputy Speaker, is the reality. We either recognise the importance of driving faster to deliver that green energy revolution and to give us an industrial advantage from doing that, or we face the wrong way by prioritising oil and gas, which actually is not fundamentally going to make a difference to us or to anyone else. Now, let me just expand on this for 1 second, because in that report that I made reference to, which was published last year, we looked at the green energy output of Scotland at that point. It was 12 gigawatts. Based on what we know from the plans that are already there, so there's no fantasy, and I would challenge anybody to refute the numbers that we have published. In Scotland alone, we can increase our green energy output up to 80 gigawatts by 2050, a five-fold increase. And when you start to think about that, and start to think about all sorts of things, how do we create the grid connectivity? And some reference has been made to that in the King's speech today, and I welcome that. But where is the actual plan to make sure that we develop that grid capacity that we need in order to deliver that green energy? And for goodness sake, let's think about, and let's be honest, some of the mistakes that we've made in the past. We never benefited to the fullest extent from the opportunities for the supply chain in oil and gas. And we certainly haven't done in the first generation of green energy. So it's not just about the plans that are there on paper to increase green energy production. It's how do we make sure that we really benefit from that? How do we make sure that we've got the planning, the consent, and that energy revolution, whether it's onshore, whether it's offshore, whether it's wind, whether it's tidal, whether it's solar, whether it's pumped storage, actually happens? And I want to commend my colleagues in the Scottish Government, because just a few weeks ago it was announced that Sumitomo would be building a cable manufacturing facility in the Highlands. Reference was made earlier on to the opportunity in tidal. We lead the world in tidal energy. But the UK Government has not got behind that to the fullest extent, to think about the fact that we could deliver 15% of our energy from tidal. But not just delivering 15% of our energy, but we could deliver the investment, we could deliver the jobs, we could have the turbine manufacturing. Where is the industrial strategy? Where is the joined-up thinking that will lead to the creation of jobs? Now, in our report, and I know some reference was made to the jobs in oil and gas, and yes, we need a proper transition. We need to support the workers that work in the oil and gas industry today. But in that skilling report, we highlight the potential of delivering up to 325,000 jobs. That's the prize which is there. Where's the ambition? Where's the potential? Where's the hope? How do we drive up living standards? And I have got to come to the conclusion, there's more I can say, but I recognise that others wish to speak, so I will stop there. But we've got a choice in Scotland of two futures.
Hear, hear.
Because we've got a United Kingdom which is in long-term relative decline. I am saddened that when I look at my country, the country of Scotland, that our relative population in the United Kingdom has declined every single decade since 1850. And I want to change that. And the only way we're going to change that record is if we drive investment into the Scottish economy. What an opportunity that we have with green energy. So I say to the people of Scotland, there is a choice, because we can stay with where we are, or we can recognise if we want to drive up our economy, if we want to drive up productivity, if we want to create better paid jobs, if we want to create the resources to invest in our public services, then come with us. Because ultimately, Scotland's future will be as an independent country. And away from this place, let's reflect. There is not a single mention of Scotland in this King's speech. People in Scotland need to reflect on that.
Hear, hear.
Ian Stewart.